everybody, when I was little, I loved boxes. With a handful of markers and a bit of imagination, boxes could easily be turned into forts, castles, or really fast race cars. Does anybody here know what I'm talking about? Days and days of fun have been found playing inside of a box. However, in life sometimes you might find yourself in a moment where you feel like you're being put inside a box, like this. And how do we act when we feel like we're being put inside of a box? Maybe you want to leave. You don't want to remain trapped in that situation, but you can't find a way to get out. And a lot of times, we don't see these moments approaching like parents getting divorced, moving to a new town, or breaking an arm. Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever felt like you were cramped and confined inside of a box? I have no doubt that you might have felt this way during the pandemic. When you wanted to play with your friends, but you couldn't, you probably felt trapped. When you wanted to return to school, as odd as that may sound, and you probably felt stuck. When the only thing you wanted was to give your grandmother a hug and you couldn't, you might have felt like you were in a box. In the moments when we are unable to get what we really want, how should we respond? How do you respond? And this isn't a question that I can answer for you, but it's something for you to think about for yourself. With no way of getting what you want, how do you react inside of a box? Dissatisfied, angry, frustrated, annoyed? And if these aren't the best responses, then what's a better way to respond? How we respond in these difficult situations where we want more or aren't satisfied with what's going on is important. And to help us discover a great option, let's check out some words found in the New Testament that Paul wrote to encourage others when they felt trapped in a box. The crazy part of the story is the fact that Paul was trapped in a box. But before we jump into Paul's letters, let's catch everybody up in case this is the first time you've ever watched us. You might wonder who Paul is and why we'd listen to him. Well, Paul was one of the followers of Jesus. He traveled all over the Roman Empire, sharing the story of Jesus and starting churches. But long before that, Paul, who was sometimes called Saul, was an important and influential Pharisee. This meant he knew the Old Testament teaching of the Bible really, really well, and also believed that following Jesus was a threat to the Jewish faith. Paul would stop at nothing to prevent followers of Jesus from gathering or speaking. As a result, Paul hated Jesus followers so much that he would have them arrested and confined in a small space, kind of like a box. While traveling on a road to capture more followers of Jesus, Paul had an encounter with none other than Jesus himself. And this encounter changed Paul's life forever. No longer was he taking believers away in shackles, and Paul began teaching others about Jesus. Paul's new belief in Jesus upset both the Jewish leaders and the local Roman leaders who were afraid he would cause trouble. But regardless, Paul refused to allow opposing leaders to box him in and prevent him from sharing the message of Jesus. With a new mission, Paul began to plant brand new churches. To keep in touch with the new believers at these churches, Paul wrote letters that were hand-delivered across the region. Because travel was difficult and dangerous, it could take weeks or months for letters to arrive. Plus, writing supplies like ink and papyrus were really expensive. So anytime Paul wrote a letter, he wasted no words. Everything he wrote mattered for the people who received them. One of those churches was located in a city called Philippi. This church shared a special relationship with Paul. They often found ways to encourage him on his mission. And as a result, Paul wrote the Philippians to thank the church and to encourage them in their faith. Something Paul wrote connects to this whole idea of wanting more or something different in our life. Check it out. I have learned to be content no matter what happens to me. I know what it's like not to have what I need. I also know what it's like to have more than I need. I have learned the secret of being content no matter what happens. I'm content whether I am well-fed or hungry. I'm content whether I have more than enough or not enough. I can do all of this by the power of Christ. He gives me strength. Contentment. Have you heard that word before? Cool. Contentment can be defined like this: learning to be okay with what you have. We might not have contentment right away in every situation, but it's something we can learn over time. See, Paul wanted the church to know that God can help us be okay in any situation, no matter what. No doubt these words would have been a welcoming encouragement to any of the original letter listeners. Some of you may be thinking that it was easy for Paul to say to be content in all situations. After all, Paul was God's chosen instrument to carry his name to both Jews and non-Jews. Surely Paul's life was easy, so he could share Jesus with others, right? Wrong. Consider for a moment all that Paul endured after his encounter with Jesus on that road to Damascus. Paul was whipped, stoned, shipwrecked 3 times. He survived bandits, went without food and water, escaped murder plots, and faced angry crowds, earthquakes, and so much more. On top of all of that, the religious leaders greatly opposed Paul's new, outspoken beliefs, so much that he was arrested numerous times. Paul truly understood what it was like to face difficult situations of every kind. And when you evaluate the totality of Paul's hardship, it gives instant credibility and inspiration to his words. Paul found contentment after he was bitten by a snake. Contentment was found when his ship ran and broke against the rocks. Even when he was staring down an angry mob, Paul was content. In fact, when Paul wrote these words of encouragement to the church in Philippi, he was under house arrest, unable to leave the place he was staying. Paul was in a box. So when we place our trust in Jesus, we no longer have to rely on ourselves. We can rely on God to give us the strength when we're not feeling content. Even when our lives are a complete disaster zone, Jesus can help us find contentment. God loves you so much. And when you find yourself in a box because something didn't go the way you wanted, talk to God about it. Ask Him how to help you see your situation in a new way. Ask Him to give you contentment even in situations that seem impossible. Another option is to seek the advice of a Christian older than you who has walked a similar road. God is able to speak through others, like your small group leaders, who have faced hardships in the past and has learned from those experiences, and maybe get you out of a box. God doesn't abandon us when we feel boxed in by the difficulties of life. He's always there. And when we choose to rely on God, contentment is not too far away. So, as we head out today, I want you to think about this question.
Reveal the question.
When is it hardest to be content? And how can the power of God help you go from being inside of a box to not? We'll see you guys next time.